story there? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling the side hustle dilemma, flawed ideas versus poor execution. Let's get straight into it.
Because the truth is, most side hustles fail, and they don't just slowly fizzle out over years of grinding. They fail fast. For a lot of working families here in Ireland, between juggling the day job, the commute, and the absolute state of the grocery bills right now, a side gig seems like the perfect way to bring in a few extra quid. You start out with fierce motivation, brilliant energy, and a clear idea. But then, it just kind of fades. The cash doesn't roll in instantly, the momentum drops, and eventually, folks just pack it in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's the roadmap for today. We're structuring this explainer like a bit of a formal debate. We'll cover the debate itself, the bad idea argument, the poor execution argument, the vital roles of time, clarity, and expectations, and wrap up with the blueprint for success.
Starting right off with part one, the debate, ideas versus execution. So at the heart of every failed side hustle, we usually find this central conflict. Do these ventures crash and burn because the foundation, the idea itself, is pure waffle? Or is the idea actually dead on, but the execution and the follow-through are just completely lacking? Bad ideas versus bad execution. It's a massive divide.
Let's kick things off with part two, taking the first position, the bad idea argument, flawed foundations.
The argument on this side is pretty straightforward. Not all ideas are viable from the get-go. Aspiring entrepreneurs, especially those of us absolutely pressed for time, often look for what seems like a handy earner. They jump at weak starting points, like generic online stores, throwing up content with absolutely no audience, or offering services that lack any clear value proposition. Basically, they're choosing based on what looks easy online, rather than what an Irish working family, or say, a local business down the road, actually needs.
Now, what's really interesting here is exactly why these ideas fall flat. From this perspective, the failure is entirely predictable. Why? Simply because there's no real demand. You're trying to muscle into oversaturated markets, or you're trying to solve problems nobody's willing to part with their hard-earned money for. The idea lacks demand, it lacks differentiation, and it has zero clarity. So the foundation is fundamentally flawed right from day one.
But let's switch sides now for part three, the poor execution argument, failing follow-through.
The argument on this side of the fence is equally strong, right? Because even a brilliant idea will crash and burn if it isn't executed properly. Proper execution demands consistency, effort, adaptation, and a whole lot of time. And let's be honest, this is exactly where the working person really struggles. You get home after a long day, you're absolutely wrecked, but the hustle still needs you giving it socks. People start strong, but when the results don't miraculously appear overnight, they change direction, they lose focus, or they simply underestimate the fierce amount of time required to get it off the ground.
So, the crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote. So the issue is not the idea, it's the follow-through. A totally viable, rock-solid business can be suffocated by a lack of sustained effort. The hustle isn't passive, folks. If your effort drops, your results are going to drop right along with it. Which brings us nicely to part four, time, clarity, and expectations, where clarity is key. Let's see how this all builds together. Because the funny thing is, both sides of our debate are actually correct. Bad ideas absolutely do fail quickly, but good ideas fail too if they're starved of time and effort. So what actually determines success? What separates the ventures that make it from the ones left gathering dust?
Honestly, it often comes down to the expectation trap. We live in a world where everyone is after a quick fix, especially with the cost of living squeezing renters and homeowners alike right across the country. But expecting fast results leads to quitting entirely too early. When those high expectations aren't met instantly, people just assume the idea itself is a dud. So what do? They switch. New idea, new approach. It turns into this continuous vicious cycle, and they never actually give anything enough time to work and build proper momentum.
And sitting right alongside time is clarity. By definition, clarity is the ability for someone to quickly understand exactly what you offer and why it matters to them. If the value is unclear, potential customers simply will not engage. It literally doesn't matter if you're putting in the hours every single night at the kitchen table. If the customer doesn't get it immediately, you're just spinning your wheels.
So how do we fix this? Let's move to part five, the blueprint for success, how to make it work. And this brilliantly illustrates how successful side hustles follow a proven four-step pattern. 1. Solve a real problem. 2. Execute consistently. 3. Give it enough time. And 4. Adapt based on feedback. You literally have to combine clear, proven demand with relentless, patient execution.
But look, let's be realistic here. It's not always going to go right the first time you chance your arm at it. And we need to reframe that entirely. Failure isn't strictly a negative thing. Each attempt builds your experience, improves your skill, and increases your understanding. Those unsuccessful attempts? They're just stepping stones. They're basically your apprenticeship for figuring out what actually works in the real world.
So here is the real answer, folks. Most side hustles fail because of a combination of both weak ideas and weak execution. But the very good news? Both of these can be fixed. You can choose better problems to solve, you can execute a lot more consistently, and you can give yourself the grace and the time needed to see those real results.
And I'll leave you with this brilliant thought straight from our source material. Assuming success or failure comes from just one factor usually misses the bigger picture. A bit like confidently simplifying something complex which would feel entirely in place in an episode of Father Ted. So I leave you with this question to ponder. Are you blaming your idea when it's really your execution, or vice versa? Master both, and you'll build something that truly works for you and your family. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Catch you on the next one.